Hi everyone, my name's Jen. I'm an author and a book reviewer, and I'm here rather belatedly, apologies, with my best books of 2024 video. A couple of weeks ago I uploaded a video where I talked about stats, my reading year as a whole. I gave a rundown of most of the books that I read in 2024 super speedily because I didn't get the chance to do many wrap-ups throughout the year in 2024, so I wanted to catch up with you a little bit. But now we need to do a best books of the year, even though it's kind of the end of January. I had flu, then a chest infection, and now I'm here and I'm feeling much better. So I think I have 15 books to talk to you about today, and let's just dive into them. I would love to know what your favourite books of 2024 were in a comment down below. Please do share. And yeah, let's jump right in. So in 2024, as you know, I had a baby, and that means that I read a lot of picture books in 2024. I'm not going to talk about the books that I read with her in this video, though I do have particular favourites. I have made a video where I recommended 100 board books and picture books, and I'll link that video in the description box down below. But I do just read children's books in general anyway because I enjoy them, and also I'm a children's book author, so it seems like a sensible thing to do. And I had a few favourites of books that I bought and read for me, but will also share with my child because that seems like a friendly thing to do. And first off, my favourites were by Alice Melvin. I have a huge obsession with Alice Melvin at the moment. I've been purchasing all of her backlist books, but particular favourites in 2024 were her Mouse's Wood series. The first two are out, the third one is coming out in March, and I'm not kidding when I say it was my most anticipated book for 2025, and I was so thrilled when an advanced reading copy landed on my mat last week. Like, honestly, receiving a picture book that's highly anticipated, oh how glorious. Okay, anyway, so the first one is called Mouse's Wood. It's by Alice Melvin, the text is by William Snow, and it's about a mouse who lives in the wood. You open it and you get a map at the beginning. If I can find it, excuse me, there we go. A map of the wood and where all of the creatures live. And then each double page spread is about a season. So we start off with Mouse and his house. It says, in January, a new year wakes beneath the softening snows. Snuggled under rugs and quilts, I lie in bed and doze. It is simply the coziest thing ever. Lots of flaps, beautiful, love it. So that one came out a couple of years ago. In 2024, this one came out, which is the sequel, which is Mouse on the River. And it's Mouse journeying down the canal and then the river to go stay with, I would say, his boyfriend in a cottage by the sea. And again, we have lots of interiors. So this is one of the store, what do I mean? One of the canal sides where stores are. So we have got the river store, which is run by a fox, and we have this canal boat here with some shrew in it, and it's just so beautiful. Again, rhyming, lovely text, and the third book I will talk to you about at some point, but it's also beautiful. Then I think it was in February this book came out. This is Dim Sum Palace by X Fang, which is just so delightful. This is about a young girl called Lidia who is dreaming about going to Dim Sum Palace because she's going to go there with her family the following day. That's a restaurant, but in her dream, it is an actual palace. And she wanders into the kitchen where she discovers that she is somehow tiny and the chefs can't see her, and they accidentally turn her into a dumpling, and the Empress has to save her. I just think it's the right balance of cozy and also slightly scary, which is perfect for kids. I should say these are probably maybe like 3 to 7, I would say, year olds. But obviously I'm an adult and bought them for myself and really enjoyed them. So do buy them for yourself too. And then I had to import this one because it's not out here yet, but this is another X Fang book. It's called We Are Definitely Human, and it's about 3 aliens who crash land their UFO, and they go and stay at Mr. and Mrs. Lee's house. They say that their car has broken down, and they introduce themselves by saying, hi, we are definitely human. And it's just very tongue-in-cheek. There's something quite John Klassen about this book, I think. And I'll just give you an idea of the humour. Mrs. Lee found them somewhat odd. Now, where are you from? She asked. We are from Europe, said the tall one. Ah, okay, said Mrs. Lee. And what do you all do in Europe? I make business, said the short one. I play sports ball, said the tall one. I wear hat, said the one wearing the hat. Maybe it's the mention of the hat that makes me think of John Klassen. I don't know, it's just very dry humour. Enjoyed. Then we have a longer form picture book, and this one I would say is primarily for ages 5 to 9. And this is a book by Maggie O'Farrell, who is obviously most well known for her novels, which I also have enjoyed, but this is for children. It's called When the Stammer Came to Stay, and it's illustrated by Daniela Terrazzini, and this is about 2 sisters, one of whom develops a stammer, and this is based on Maggie's own experience of developing a stammer when she was young. The illustrations in here, there's something so nostalgic about it. In fact, I would say there's something, I feel like I'm leaning so much in this video. There's something really nostalgic just about this whole book. It reminded me in tone of Ballet Shoes by Noel Stratfield, possibly because these sisters live in a house with lodgers. And that was my favourite bit, I think, about Ballet Shoes, is all of the different people living in the house with Pauline, Posey and Petrova. But yeah, I just thought that this was lovely. It kind of had a fairy tale type feel to it as well. Super, super cozy. Also just lovely to get that own voices experience as well. Then I found this in a local bookshop and could not leave without it. This is by Lidia Brankovic, and it's called The Grand Hotel of Feelings, and it is about a girl or a woman, I'm not sure how old she is, who runs a hotel for feelings, and she knows that all feelings have to be accommodated, they have to be listened to, and once they have felt as though they have been welcomed and taken care of, then that's when they feel like they can leave. So sadness often floods the bathroom, anger needs a big bedroom because he needs to be able to shout and scream, and if you put him in a small room and try to keep him away from the other guests, then bad things will happen. The illustrations, and I mean this as a compliment, have a beautiful childlike quality to them. Here is a double page spread here. It says, when there are too many feelings making too many demands, that's when anxiety checks in. Anxiety is forever changing forms. Sometimes he looks like fear, and other times he looks like guilt. He loves the spotlight and he tries to distract me from all the other feelings in the hotel. Can you see? There you go. And yeah, I'll show you another double page spread as well. It's just very sweet. It's kind of like Studio Ghibli meets the Grand Budapest Hotel. That's what I would say. And then I also wanted to give a shout out to these 3 long form picture books / graphic novels / graphic short stories, I suppose, because these are Japanese palm of the hand stories, so flash fiction, about Sato the rabbit. This is the first one. Then we have got The Sea of Tea and the Moon, and Sato the rabbit gets up to all of these beautiful magical realist things like climbing inside a raspberry and turning the moon into a blanket, and it's just like Kay O'Neill's books, you know, who does the Tea Dragon Society. If you want something comforting like that, then I'd recommend this. They're like a crossover between The Little Prince and the Moomins. That's the best way I can describe them. So now we're getting into books that are primarily for adults, but what is age ranging anyway? Age ranging is boring. I wanted to give a shout out to this book here. It is a flawed book. I have mentioned that whenever I have talked about this book on this channel, but I couldn't leave it off my favourites book because I'm still thinking about it. And this is Butter by Asako Yuzuki, and it won lots of awards in 2024. So clearly some people think it is a not necessarily flawed book, or else are just wrapped up in it like I am and have made peace with the flaws and don't care about them. This is translated from the Japanese by Polly Barton. And this is about a journalist who wants to go and interview a woman who's been locked up for murdering her lovers. Apparently she seduced them with her food and then killed them, and she just wants to write articles about her. So she goes to visit her under the guise of wanting to learn about food from her. And the woman in prison gives her homework, tells her recipes she needs to cook, restaurants she needs to go to in order to appreciate food better, but the journalist does it because she wants to understand the murderer better. I think that the descriptions of food in here are some of the best I've read. They made me so incredibly hungry, and the descriptions of Tokyo as well were just lovely. I listened to this on audiobook. It is brilliantly narrated by Hanako Footman. The reason I say it's flawed is that I think it's got so many different threads to it, and I don't think that they all came together at the end. Not that things need to be tied up neatly in a bow. I actually dislike that in a book. But some threads felt as though they were forgotten. And I thought, are we not coming back to that? Did we not lay a path for something there? And no, we just whizzed by it at the end, and it felt a little bit unsatisfactory. So that's the reason I say that it is flawed. But I would like to reread it. I think it's got some interesting conversations about feminism in Japan as well. So yes, I recommend this one, but with caveats. Before I jump into the next book, I just wanted to give a thank you to the sponsor of this video, which is Serious Readers. It is the evening. I am sure I'm looking rather dishevelled. I am tired. I've just run around the living room throwing books into a basket, not my books, my daughter's books, and generally tidying up a bit so I can sit down and read for a while. But this made me giggle, and I wanted to share. We've been reading Mog the Forgetful Cat by Judith Kerr, which I love. Mog is a forgetful cat, and she keeps forgetting that she's got a cat flap, so she gets herself locked out, or she thinks she's locked out in the garden, and she's meowing to be let in, and then one night she does that and scares a burglar in the house. Sorry, massive spoiler for this book in case you were planning to read it. Anyway, so she jumps up at the window and scares the burglar. And then they call the police because the family wakes up and realises that their house is being robbed. And the end spread is the policeman congratulating Mog, but they're all having a cup of tea, including the burglar. I love that he's just, you know, still there and is having a cup of tea with everyone. And of course, this is how all burglars dress, in stripy tops and flat caps. Anyway, it tickles me. It tickles me. Yes, so thank you very much to Serious Readers for sponsoring this video. I've been working with them for the past, I think it's 5 years now, if I'm doing maths correctly in my head, and I'm tired, so it's quite possible that I am not, but it's been quite a few years now, and I just adore them. You know that I adore them, and this is one of the things. Ooh, you can't even see. Let me duck this in. I'll do a cutaway so you can see properly in a second. But this is one of the things they make. Serious Readers make lights. They make reading lights. They make the best reading lights, in my opinion. This is one of their high definition lights. It's a floor light. You can also get the high definition light as a table light, and my mum has one of those, and those are brilliant too. Basically, they invented something called daylight wavelength technology, which mimics daylight as closely as possible. And when you've got tired eyes and you want to be reading, these give your eyes a break by making the best reading environment possible. And I just love it so very much. You can adjust the height of this one, you can adjust the brightness. It's great. I have a code for you, or rather they've given me, well, I do have a code for you, but it's from them. They have given me a code to give to you, which is Jen, and that will get you £150 off a high definition light and free UK delivery. So if you would like to go check them out, please do. I will leave a link in the description box down below along with the code. As I've said before, they are a wonderful company to work with, a small UK company. They make their lights here, and they're so good that they have gone as far into space as we have, and as far into the depths of the ocean as we have, because their lights are used in spaceships and submarines, which is a testament to how brilliant they are. Thank you very much to Serious Readers for sponsoring this video. I'm going to curl up now, me, in this present, with a copy of Caroline Blackwood's The Fate of Mary Rose, which, spoiler, is for a future reading vlog where I am reading other booktubers' favourite books of the year. And this has a brilliant first sentence. The first sentence is, "She was dead even before I became aware of her existence." Ooh, lovely. Okay, I'm going to curl up with this. Present you is going to go back to listening to me talking about my favourite books of last year. That's it. Okay, back to past me. This is Stoneyard Devotional by Charlotte Wood. This was my favourite book from this year's Booker Prize list. I did a video where I read the entire long list, which I'll link in the description box down below if you happen to have the energy. This reminded me a little bit of The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Not content-wise, but tone, because this is written in a diary format. It's very slow-paced, and you don't get a lot of world building in it because the narrator doesn't think you as a reader will come across her diary and read it. So she's not going to use exposition. She's not going to explain the obvious to you. She's not going to say, by the way, I am this many years old, and this is why I broke up with my husband. And because she knows all of that. So you're only getting her present day thoughts on what is happening now. And her backstory, you're kind of having to work on yourself. And I like that. It makes you work as a reader. And I think it's a really interesting narrative device. This narrator has gone to live in this convent, and you're not really sure why. She's kept going back to it in her life, and then she's hinting at 3 distinct things that have happened, and that sets the tone for the rest of the book, which is a little bit grimy and murky and creepy. One of those things is a mouse plague, so nothing really feels clean, which I think is how she feels about her past. She cannot shake her past. I just think it's a really quiet, understated novel that will leave you wanting more in the best way possible. Then we have 2 books from this year's Women's Prize for Fiction shortlist. This is Enter Ghost by Isabella Hammad. This is about a woman called Sonia who leaves London to travel back to Palestine to stay with family. She has recently broken up with someone who was a director, and this is a great metaphor for him trying to direct her life, and that's what she's getting away from. And when she gets back to Palestine, she ends up being part of a production of Hamlet that's being put on in the West Bank in Arabic, and she gets sucked into thinking about how you can repurpose texts and explore them in ways that will highlight issues that you are particularly passionate about. So how can we use Shakespeare to talk about Palestine, for instance? And how do they get funding for this play without appeasing Western media, which is something they don't want to do because they don't feel like they've been supported by that media. And I just thought there were lots of really interesting discussions in this. Part of this, or quite a bit of this actually, is set out in script format to mimic the play that they are putting on. I thought that was super effective. For that reason, I would recommend reading this in physical form if you can, because I listened to this on audio and I wasn't sure that that particularly worked, because obviously the narrator has to say the name followed by what they're saying, and it felt a little laborious in audio form, but it wouldn't feel like that at all if you were reading it on the page. This is one I've thought about so much. I thought it was brilliant. Lots to talk about. Then we have River East, River West by Aube Lescure. I really struggled to talk about this one in the Women's Prize video, and I'm gonna struggle to talk about it again here because this book just felt like a hug to me. I felt completely swept up in it. I don't know if it was the time that I was reading it. I'm not sure. I listened to this one on audio maybe 2 months postpartum, and I really felt like it kept me company. I read all of the Women's Prize shortlists in that time, and some of them kept me company in not so comforting ways. For instance, I obviously read Soldier Sailor by Claire Kilroy, which was very impactful, but not exactly comforting. It was very stressful to read recently after giving birth. This one I didn't find stressful, not because it's a really serene book where lovely things happen. I don't know what it was about it. I just felt so invested in these characters' lives. I think I felt lost in it when I was reading it, and that was what I needed at that particular time because I was so deeply tired. This is about a teenager called Alva who's growing up in Shanghai. She's really annoyed that her mother, who is American, is marrying their Chinese landlord, and she's just annoyed because she doesn't like him. She thinks he's a rich person who's really up himself, and she's just being defensive about it. And you side with her at the beginning because you're reading from her perspective, but then you get to read from Lu Fang's perspective and his life several decades earlier, and you go on this journey as Alva does, warming to him. And I think it's a brilliant representation of a stepfather-stepdaughter relationship and navigating all of the complex feelings around that. I thought that the way that information was revealed in this book was really interesting. It's really about chasing dreams and about how people project different versions of themselves and different versions of wealth, different versions of whiteness. And I loved so much about this. And I don't always love split narrative dual timeline novels. I can find it a bit of a gimmick, and I didn't feel like that about that at all. So it really must be a brilliant novel if I wasn't cross about all of the time jumping elements. Then I wanted to give a shout out to The Pachinko Parlour by Elisa Shua Dusapin, which is translated from the French by Anissa Abbas Higgins. This is the second book by this author that I've read, and I'm looking forward to reading other things by her too. I think she's one of those authors where you can't believe that each book she's written is by her, because she tackles such a variety of themes, which is particularly impressive. I didn't enjoy her debut book, which was Winter in Sokjo, but so many people had. I thought I must have been missing something, and then this cover was so beautiful that I bought the book. I know, not always the best reason to buy something, but you know what, it worked this time because I adored this book. It's in my top 3. It is my 3rd favourite book of the year. This is about a woman called Claire who lives in Switzerland. She travels to Japan, to Tokyo, to stay with her Korean grandparents, to try and persuade them to travel back to Korea with her because it's somewhere she would like to visit, not really appreciating the complex history and all the feelings that they have about going back to Korea. And while she's in Tokyo, she is teaching a Japanese student, Miko, French. And this book feels really damp. The colour blue is used a lot. There's lots of water imagery. One of the characters lives in an apartment where one of her rooms, her bedroom, has an old swimming pool in it, and her bed is in the swimming pool. It has this feeling of being drenched in grief, like you can never get dry, and none of the characters are talking about it, they're just tiptoeing around, but there's this drip, drip, drip constantly, and I just thought that that was very hauntingly beautiful, and I would recommend this strongly. Then I obviously would recommend the next one strongly too, because it's my second favourite book of the year. This is Pet by Catherine Chidgey. This is about a character called Justine, and again it is split time narrative, but you spend very little time in the near modern day section. Most of it is set in the 80s when Justine was 13, and her teacher, Mrs. Price, is a teacher who likes to exploit her students. She gets them to do things that they shouldn't really be asked to do. She asks favours of them, but it makes the kids feel special and it makes them like her. Then the teacher gets involved in Justine's private life, and I don't want to say more than that because I think that's a spoiler, and interferes in friendships and exerts power in a new way. The reason I can't really talk about it is because it's a thriller, and you just can't, because the whole point is going into it not knowing much and just enjoying the intrigue. I will say, if you like Notes on a Scandal by Zoe Heller, you will adore this. Thank Me Later. The ending is so brilliant. And then finally, I think my favourite read of the year is this, and it's the most comforting thing I have read in a really long time. And I normally read really dark and twisted things, as you know. This is none of those things, but I have read a book by this author before which was very dark and twisted, but simultaneously comforting, which I know is a bit of a paradox. So this is R.C. Sherriff's book, and I read his book, The Hopkins Manuscript, a few years ago, and it was my second favourite or most favourite book of that year. And that is about a world where the moon is about to collide with the earth, and the narrator is a man living in the countryside who has been told that this is going to happen, and he's just writing about it in his diary. So apocalyptic, but cosy. Yes. Anyway, this is just the cosy, not the apocalyptic. This is the last... No. This is The Fortnight in September. I do know the name of this book, The Fortnight in September by R.C. Sherriff. And this is about a family called the Stevens family who every September go to Bognor Regis for 2 weeks. And it's just about that holiday. It's about them prepping for the journey, all the to-do lists they make, all the little anxieties they have about travelling, how they want to make sure that all of the things they loved about the last holiday they're able to do again, because they like that element of routine, but they're also trying to seek surprises. They want new things to inject into their lives, but they're a little bit nervous about that too, because they're kind of set in their ways. I will read you these 2 paragraphs. For although in common with all good seaside stations, the sea is carefully hidden from your view, you would notice that bleached dry appearance about everything and the freshness of the broad platforms that look as if they are swept each day by a surging wave. In London, things grow dark with time. At the seaside, things grow pale, except for, of course, the people. In London, dirt and rubbish creeps into the corners and lies sluggishly there until someone comes and sweeps it away. At the seaside, it runs into the corners, circles gaily around, and is chased off again. That's kind of what they want. They want all the dirt and grime of their everyday life washed away and to be renewed by this holiday. They bicker constantly, they get on each other's nerves, but they also love each other. I have never read a book that more perfectly captures the minutiae of everyday life and the little family like annoyances that are also the wonderful things that make up a family, because it's just everyday life. I would put this into the hands of everyone. In fact, I've bought it for several people already, all of whom have absolutely adored it. This is a Persephone classic. It was first published in the 1920s. So those are my favourite books of 2024. I would love to know if you have read any of these, or if you would like to, now that you've heard me talk about them. Please let me know your favourite books of 2024 in a comment down below. If you enjoyed this video and you're new to my channel and you would like to subscribe, that would be lovely. And if you enjoy the content I put out and you would like to consider supporting me on Patreon, that would be very kind. Link to that is in the description box down below. You can throw $1 or £1 in the tip jar, and all the support over there allows me to keep creating free content for you here, and there's a few extra things over on Patreon for you as well as a thank you. And thank you also to Serious Readers for sponsoring this video. Check them out, link is in the description box down below. I will be back soon with a new video, and I'm sending lots of love. Bye.